Taurus, you've overlooked something small, seemingly insignificant that your mind dismissed as irrelevant. But that detail you ignored is about to explode in your face in a way that will completely reorganize your reality. And when that happens, you'll look back and realize that all the signs were there, screaming for you to pay attention, but you chose not to see. You chose not to listen. You chose to stay in your comfort zone, pretending that little annoyance didn't exist. It's too late to avoid it now. What you ignored has taken on a life of its own and is growing in the background of your existence like a shadow that grows ever larger. And soon, very soon, that shadow will become so large that it will completely block out the light you thought was permanent in your life. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you for the inevitable. Because when your life turns upside down, and it will, you'll need to know exactly what to do in the first few seconds to transform that chaos into opportunity. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Deep down, in that place you avoid looking, you know exactly what detail you ignored. It might be that conversation you should have had but postponed, that truth you perceived but pretended not to see, that feeling that arose and you pushed under the rug. That intuition that alerted you and you rationalized until it disappeared. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to explain exactly why Taurians like you have the dangerous habit of ignoring small signs until they turn into earthquakes. And I'm going to reveal what happens when you're finally forced to face what you've spent so long avoiding. Are you prepared to discover that the detail you ignored has more power over your future than all the things you've been paying attention to? Let me tell you something about the Taurus nature that you probably never realized. You're a master at creating illusions of stability. You build solid routines, establish comfortable patterns, create a sense of permanence around you, and then you convince yourself that this structure you've built is unbreakable. But here's the brutal truth you need to hear. Nothing in your life is as stable as you've convinced yourself it is. Everything is held together by a delicate balance that depends on you continuing to ignore certain details. The detail you ignored is precisely the one that threatens this balance. It's the crack in the foundation you built so carefully. And cracks have an interesting characteristic. The longer you pretend they don't exist, the bigger they become. Until one day, without warning, the entire structure collapses at once. And that's exactly what's about to happen in your life. For those born between April 20th and 30th, the ignored detail relates to a relationship you know isn't working, but you continue investing energy in it because you're afraid to start over. For those born between May 1st and 10th, the detail has to do with a talent or potential you've recognized in yourselves but rejected because pursuing that path would mean leaving your current security. And for those born between May 11th and 20th, the ignored detail is a truth about yourselves that contradicts the identity you've built and defended for years. But regardless of your specific case, the pattern is the same. You saw something, recognized its importance on a soul level, but your mind kicked in to protect your comfort zone and convinced you to ignore it. It's not that important, you thought. I can deal with it later, you decided. Maybe it will pass if I don't pay attention, you hoped. And while you ignored it, the detail grew. It gained strength. It prepared for the moment when you could no longer pretend it didn't exist. Can you feel that moment approaching like a storm you see forming on the horizon, but insist on believing will pass without affecting you? Taurus, let me ask you a direct question. How many times in your life have you noticed signs that something was wrong, but chose to keep things as they were because change seemed too difficult or risky? How many times has your intuition shown you a truth, but you decided it was easier to continue the comfortable lie? How many times have you felt that tightness in your chest when you knew you needed to take action, but instead chose to take a deep breath and move on as if nothing had happened? Each time you did that, the detail you ignored became more powerful, because in the universe of cause and effect, nothing you ignore simply disappears. Everything you avoid facing accumulates pressure until it can no longer be contained. It's like trying to hold water in your closed hands. You can do it for a while, but eventually the pressure becomes so great that the water will forcefully burst out, soaking everything around it. What will happen when your life turns upside down won't be a punishment from the universe. It will simply be the natural consequence of ignoring signs that were trying to guide you toward a necessary change. The difference between a person who thrives after a turnaround and one who gets lost for years is simple. The first recognizes that the destruction of the old life was necessary to build something better. The second remains stuck, lamenting what they lost and trying to rebuild exactly what they had before. Which of these two people will you choose to be when everything falls apart? Because let me be crystal clear with you, it will fall apart. The detail you ignored is already in motion. It's already creating ripple effects in your life that you haven't yet noticed. And when those effects finally become visible, you'll have a few hours, maybe a few days, to decide who you want to be in the midst of the chaos. You can desperately cling to the pieces of your old life, trying to glue everything back together, struggling to maintain the appearance that everything is all right, insisting that you can control the situation if you only work hard enough. Or you can take a deep breath, accept that the old life is over, and ask yourself, what kind of life do I want to build now that I'm free from the illusions I created for myself? Do you have the courage to admit that maybe, just maybe, the life that's about to crumble wasn't as good as you convinced yourself it was? The truth no one tells you about upheavals is that they always happen for a specific reason, to force you to grow in ways you would never have the courage to grow voluntarily. You as a Taurus have a complicated relationship with change. You value stability above almost everything. You've built your identity around being reliable, consistent, someone who doesn't waver with every wind. And that's a wonderful quality in many contexts. But here's the problem. You've confused stability with stagnation. You've created such rigid structures around yourself that there's no room for growth. And when there's no room for organic growth, life has to create crises to force you to expand. It's like a tree whose roots have grown so much that they've cracked the concrete around it. The concrete represents your rigid structures. The roots represent your unrealized potential. Something has to give. And what will give way is exactly what you cling to most. It could be a relationship you think defines who you are. It could be a job you've confused with your identity. It could be an image of yourself you've defended for so long that you've forgotten it's just a mask. Whatever it is, when it falls, it will feel like you've lost a part of yourself. But the truth is, you'll only be losing the prison you've built around yourself. In the days leading up to the turning point, you'll notice some specific signs. Your mind will be restless for no apparent reason. You'll have trouble sleeping, or you'll oversleep, trying to escape an anxiety you can't name. You'll find yourself revisiting old memories, questioning decisions you made years ago. You'll feel an inexplicable urge to get your life in order, but without knowing exactly what that means. These aren't symptoms of something wrong with you. They're symptoms of your higher self trying to prepare you for what's coming. It's your spirit knowing that massive changes are on the way and trying to get you ready to deal with them. Don't ignore these signs either. Use this period to strengthen your inner foundation, because the outer one will need to be rebuilt soon. The upheaval that's coming will happen in 3 phases. First phase, the detail you ignored will finally force your attention. It could be through an unavoidable conversation, a discovery you can no longer deny, a situation that explodes and forces you to deal with it. In this phase, you will go into denial. You will try to minimize it. You will want to believe that you can fix everything quickly and go back to normal. Second phase, denial will turn into chaos. You will realize that you can no longer maintain the illusion of control. The structures around you will begin to crumble in a way that seems impossible to stop. In this phase, you may panic. You will want to cling to anything that seems solid. You will desperately search for certainties at a time when everything seems uncertain. Third phase, surrender and reconstruction. After you realize you can't control the collapse, you'll need to make a conscious choice to stop fighting it and start working with the new circumstances. It is in this phase that the magic happens, but only if you have the wisdom not to try to rebuild exactly what you had before. The big mistake Tauruses make during a turnaround is that they have a very strong emotional memory of what used to be good and try to recreate that. But the universe isn't giving you a turnaround so you can rebuild the same prison with different materials. It's giving you a blank slate so you can finally create something that honors who you truly are, not who you thought you should be. When your life turns upside down, you'll have two options. Option 1, you can fight it, resist it, try to control the uncontrollable, cling to the pieces of your old life, and waste years trying to go back to what it was. Option 2, you can accept that the old self is dead, grieve as needed, and then ask yourself, if I could create any life I wanted, knowing what I know now, what would it be like? And then use the rubble of your old life as a foundation to build something truly extraordinary. Most people choose option 1 because it seems the safest. But let me give you a different perspective. You know what's truly unsafe? Rebuilding a life that has already proven not to work for you. You know what insanity is, recreating the same conditions and expecting different results. The only truly safe option is to use this upheaval as a catalyst to create a life that is sustainable because it's authentic, not because it's familiar. Taurus, the detail you ignored isn't your enemy. It's your harshest teacher trying to teach you the most important lesson of your life. You can't build a real life on false foundations. You can't create lasting happiness by ignoring fundamental truths. You can't reach your full potential if you keep choosing comfort over growth. Every detail you ignore is a part of you that's begging to be seen, heard, integrated. And when you ignore it long enough, that rejected part of yourself creates chaos to force you to pay attention. Not because it wants to destroy you, but because it wants to break free from the prison where you've locked it. Think of all the versions of yourself that you've rejected over the years because they didn't fit the stable image you've built. The creative version you stifled because you needed to be responsible. The passionate version you controlled because you didn't want to seem too intense. The adventurous version you locked away because you had to be reliable. All these rejected versions are waiting on the other side of this upheaval. And when your old life crumbles, they will finally be allowed to emerge. The upheaval that's coming is, in fact, an invitation. An invitation for you to stop living an edited and approved version of your life and start living the complete and uncensored version. An invitation for you to stop worrying so much about keeping things stable and start worrying about keeping them authentic. An invitation for you to discover that there is a much deeper and more real form of stability than the one you have been seeking. The stability that comes from being aligned with your truth, not from being trapped in rigid structures. Over the next few weeks, you'll begin to see more clearly what specific detail you've been ignoring. And when you do, you'll have a choice. You can finally deal with it consciously and proactively, or you can continue ignoring it until it dramatically forces your attention. Honestly, based on what I see of the energy moving around you, you'll probably choose to continue ignoring it, because that's what Taurians do until they have no other choice. But I'm giving you this warning now so that when the upheaval comes, you at least know what's happening. So that you don't waste energy wondering, why is this happening to me? And can instead spend that energy asking, what is this trying to teach me? So that you don't get stuck as a victim of the situation and can quickly move into becoming the creator of your new reality. When everything falls apart, and it will fall apart, remember these words. You are not losing your life. You are only losing the limited version of it that you convinced yourself was all you could have. On the other side of this destruction lies a freedom you didn't even know was possible, an authenticity you never allowed yourself to experience. A life that doesn't need to be defended or maintained with constant effort because it is naturally sustainable by being true. The question isn't if your life will turn upside down, it's when. And the answer is soon, sooner than you think. The detail you ignored is already in an advanced stage of manifestation. The events that will force you to deal with it are already in motion. The people who will be involved in this process are already being positioned. The universe has already arranged everything with surgical precision. You may feel angry about this. You may feel wronged. You may think, why me? Why now? But here's the truth. This is happening because you are ready, even if you don't feel like it. This is happening because you have reached the limit of possible growth within your current structures. This is happening because there is a much greater version of you waiting to emerge, and the only way for it to emerge is if the old is completely demolished. During the storm, keep your heart open. Don't close yourself off. Don't build even higher walls around yourself. Don't become even more rigid trying to avoid future changes. Because if you do that, you'll need to go through another, even bigger upheaval in a few years. The goal isn't to survive this change and then go back to protecting yourself. The goal is to learn to live so authentically that future changes can be navigated smoothly instead of being destroyed. Taurus, you are much stronger than you think, much more resilient than you give yourself credit for. Your true strength doesn't come from your ability to keep everything the same. It comes from your ability to build beautiful and lasting things. And when this upheaval passes, you will use that ability to build a life that will be truly beautiful precisely because it is truly yours. The detail you ignored is about to become the protagonist of your story for a while. Let it be. Don't fight it. Don't try to minimize it. Give it the attention it's been asking for all along. Listen to what it has to say. Understand why it grew so much while you ignored it. And then use that understanding to create something new, something better, something real. In the days that follow the upheaval, you'll find yourself thinking about two versions of your life: the life you had before and lost, and the life you're building now. The first will seem safer in your memory than it actually was. The second will seem more frightening than it actually is. Don't be fooled by this distorted perspective. The old life wasn't as good as you'll remember. The new life isn't as dangerous as you'll fear. The truth is simple. You've spent years building a life around what you thought it should be, around what was expected of you, around what seemed safe and acceptable. And that life worked up to a point, but it's reached its limit. It can no longer take you where you need to go. It can no longer accommodate who you are becoming. That's why it needs to be dismantled. Accept this with grace. Accept this with courage. Accept it as the gift that it truly is. Because in the end, you will look back and realize that the day your life turned upside down was the day your real life finally began. It was the day you stopped pretending and started living. It was the day you let go of control and found true freedom. Are you ready to stop ignoring and start truly living? If this message shook you in any way, that's good. It means you recognize the truth in it. Share in the comments what detail you've been ignoring. You don't need to give complete details, just acknowledge that it exists. The act of naming what you've been avoiding already begins the process of conscious dismantling, which is much better than waiting for forced dismantling. Subscribe to the channel now because you'll need guidance on how to navigate the upheaval that's coming, how to maintain your sanity when everything is changing, how to distinguish between what's worth rebuilding and what should be left behind, how to use this period of chaos to create something truly extraordinary. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any content that can support you during this transition. Your life will be turned upside down by a detail you ignored. This isn't a possibility, it's a certainty. The only variable is whether you'll seize this turn of events to finally break free from the prisons you've built yourself, or whether you'll waste this opportunity trying to rebuild those same prisons. Choose wisely, because this chance doesn't come often. And when it does, you'll only have a few moments to decide who you want to be in the new world that's emerging from the ruins of the old.